welcome to everybody. Welcome to all our Kung Fu family, and welcome to Josh's family and friends. Tonight is about more than Josh becoming a Sifu, and more than about Sifu becoming a Grand Master. It is about our Jiaobei lineage, the continuation of our line in the Jiaga family tree. Josh and all students of Jiaga are lucky to be part of a closely interconnected Kung Fu line. Of the 5 tigers or founders of Jiaga, Jiao Bill was perhaps the most prolific. His many years dedicated to Jiaga, his disciples, and the spread of our system. Chin Yuk Din, Sifu's own teacher, who is to be thanked for the spread of Jiaga out of the limits of Asia to the whole of the Western world. Grandmaster Chen Manchung now has so many thousands of disciples throughout the world. It was all due to Chin Yuk Din emigrating from Hong Kong to the USA and opening the tiny Jiaga Kun in Washington, D.C. There, Sifu found his great passion in life and joined the ranks of a number of truly gifted young American men who would go on to continue their passion for life and spread our system further outwards from America. Every bit of hard work Josh has put in, as his teacher, Sifu has worked equally hard. Josh has much ahead of him now as he moves from being a young man with a passion for Kung Fu to become a mature man, blessed with recognition, which comes hand in hand with a serious commitment and much responsibility for the future.
We are witnessing the culmination of 10 years of Josh's journey in Kung Fu and the achievement of his long-term goal to become a Sifu, a Kung Fu master. My own goal in fostering a new Jiaga Sifu has been a journey that's taken close to 30 years. It's taken this long to find a student who could one day be a master. As the saying goes, a good teacher is hard to find, a good student is even harder. But I hope to see another Sifu amongst you in the not too distant future. When I was 17, my path changed. I was drawn to a Kung Fu school in Chinatown by a picture of the legendary Bruce Lee. I had discovered Jiaogao Kung Fu and my teacher, Sifu Chen Yuk Din. Driven by and obsessed with Kung Fu. Sifu Chen made me his disciple, and I moved here in 1982, some months before Josh was born. Australian Callaghan has been its current HQ for more than 25 years. Josh came to us there in 2001. Apparently, he'd already shown some talent in the martial arts department as a youngster. Needless to say, he quickly proved to have a particular talent for Kung Fu. He soon progressed to instruct. You can hear him 2 blocks away at Surrey Hills. With Josh's great achievement at Sifu Jiaga, I have at last reached my goal of sponsoring a 3rd generation of Jiaga practitioners in Australia. He has traveled without route to China, and there paid homage at the shrine to the 5 tigers of Callaghan, along with some of you here today. He has gone back to the very roots of Callaghan. He has traveled to Hong Kong with me and alone on a number of occasions. Most recently, just a few months ago. He has met Dynasty Gong, Chen Manchung on a number of occasions. He's begun to forge his own relationship with Jiaga family from our Jiaobei lineage and beyond. This will be vital to him throughout his future. I'll now hand you over to Josh, and if I may use some of his mother Linda's words, this is some of my best work.
Thank you all for coming here and celebrating with us. I really appreciate it. There is a Chinese saying that translates as, "You must learn to eat bitter before you can taste sweet." To me, this isn't just a metaphor for Kung Fu, but also one for life. To master Kung Fu or any style of martial arts, you must train when you feel good, when the weather is nice, and in an environment that you feel comfortable. But more importantly, you must train when you don't feel good, when the weather is bad, and in situations or environments that make you uncomfortable. If you can do this, then you have just started on a path to be a real martial artist. I've been training Jiao Kung Fu full-time for about 10 years. I've shed tears, blood, and a lot of sweat. Eventually the bitter becomes routine, the routine becomes easy, and one day you will taste the sweet. I hope one day that I can as well. I'd like to thank Sifu in Victoria for opening the door to my training and teaching me many lessons, not just in Kung Fu. To all the students, working out how to teach you has been challenging and has helped me to better understand my own Kung Fu. To my family and friends, I'm very lucky to have such a beautiful family. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Today is an exceptionally special day, probably once in a lifetime. I've been training in Kung Fu for over 15 years, and the only other day I can compare to today would be the day when Master Sifu and Master Uwe selected Po to be the Dragon Warrior. There are actually many parallels that can be drawn between Josh and Po. Dedication, humility, humor, friendliness, and the use of almond cookie visualization during training. It's these non-martial qualities, in addition to his physical bodacity, that have led Josh up the steep path to Sifu-ness. Kung Fu is about more than kicking and punching. In all my years at the Australian Jiao Kung Fu Academy, I've seen many extremely talented students come and go. They master the physical movements, but after a point they lose the struggle against their own ego. The path of student-instructor-disciple Sifu involves constant giving. I don't have to tell anyone here about Josh, because everyone knows Josh. He gives so much of himself to all of us. It's been an honor to train alongside Josh for the last 10 years. I'm looking forward to being with Josh in the years ahead, to continue the work started by our Sifu, and to spread Jiao to a whole new generation of students.
Back in the days of yesteryear, young initiates would enter the Shaolin monastery hoping to eventually become ordained monks. As part of that spiritual journey, some also would be chosen to learn and perfect the martial arts. The story goes that they would spend much of their early training years performing menial tasks like sweeping sandstone floors, carrying large buckets of water, and maintaining the temple ground. Fast forwarding to the early days of the 21st century, Sydney, Australia, a similar story unfolds with a quiet young skater boy called Joshua Smith. He climbed 4 flights of stairs, cleaning up the rubbish as he went. At the top, he'd sweep the wooden floors, vacuum the carpets, clean the toilets, and finally take the rubbish back down those 4 flights of stairs. Josh is also very artistic, not only in both paint and ink, but as we all know, in the art of physical movement. Over the last 10 years, Josh's persistence, patience, and determination have shown him his mastery of Jiao Kung Fu. A mastery not only extending to his physical skills, but also to his teaching ability. You always come away from a Josh lesson knowing that your Kung Fu has been improved in a significant way. Now, the first time that I realised that Josh was destined to become a Sifu was when I overheard him. I heard just a single word, a word passed down from his Sifu before him. Now, the student was trying the move that Josh had just showed him. It wasn't quite right, but Josh knew exactly what to say. He tilted his head, looked at the student and said, "Different." Josh, I'd like to thank you for being an inspiration not only to myself, but to everybody around you. When it comes to hard work and dedication, you're a prime example of how it should be done. And I'm extremely proud to see you be able to wear the red and black uniform as you take on the title of Sifu Joshua Smith.
Sifu Bennett was the teacher Joshua chose after a long search. Sifu and Victoria became part of his family, and they have supported him in many ways during his training and maturing. And he has given them his ability to work hard, his loyalty, and his respect. When he arrived at the academy, aged 17, Joshua was already perfect. Sifu told me so. Sifu soon realised he needed to be taught how to fight for himself. Since he'd never experienced anything but love and acceptance in his own family, he needed to learn anger and other reasons to wield his sword and become a warrior. If a teacher at school turned their critical attitudes onto my son, I took him to another school so he would thrive. It has been my pleasure. That's why he was a sook when he arrived. It has been my pleasure and privilege to participate in and support the process of training, teaching and learning these two amazing men have gone through together. Thank you, Sifu Bennett and Victoria, for your huge contribution to my son's life. So now he is even more perfect. He brings love and respect to all of us, and he is a warrior too. He has always made me proud. Thank you.